Welcome back. As you'll see throughout the rest of the lessons that we have in this MOOC, each particular lesson is segmented. And so now we finished our first segment of introductions. Now we're moving into segment number 2, where we're talking about rationale, benefits, limitations to the course, providing a little more context for what we're doing and why we're doing it. As we think about the rationale for the course, one of the things that I have experienced, given, again, I have a lifetime of experience as a family member and as a professional, is that the topic of disability is a really difficult one for people to discuss. Remarkably so. Over the years, and particularly given the size of the class, I've literally talked to thousands of students on topics related to disability. And one of the things that keeps coming to the fore is most of them have never talked about disability with their family, or not certainly done so in a meaningful way. And even if they have a family member who has a disability, many times they've not ever talked to their family member. One of the activities that you'll be encouraged to do within this course, and it's certainly one that I require when students take this as an on-site course, is to interview someone with a disability and interview them as a person and their background. Yes, how does disability affect it? But to talk to someone and include disability in the conversation. Many of the students find that a difficult task to do, but I will tell you, over the literally hundreds of interviews that I've read as a result of that, there's not been one student who has had an unpleasant experience or found someone who was ugly toward them. And the majority of them respond to say, you know what, that wasn't so bad, and it helped me gain some confidence. So if by taking this course, students can gain some confidence in interacting with people who are different, particularly people who have disabilities, there's great value. And I think that will happen even if you don't do an interview, but if you take advantage of listening to the various guest speakers we have and the various topics we cover, I suspect there'll be some definite benefit there. And benefit being largely an increase of knowledge, so you've got more background information, which then translates most hopefully into more positive attitudes and certainly awareness of what some of the issues and obstacles that people with disabilities face on a pretty much everyday, regular basis. This course is going to certainly also emphasize issues of universal design and social justice. We're really taking a look at disability not from a medical model that says, this is X disability and here's all the things that go wrong with that, but instead thinking about things in a much broader term. So we think about family and education and employment and language use, and think about things in a much broader kind of perspective. Another reason that this course exists in terms of as we think of rationale is that, and it may be tied to why it's so difficult to talk about disability, is that disability is a club that any of us can join at a moment's notice. Sometimes we talk about the truck plan. If you're a leader of an organization, you need to plan for succession, because what happens if you're walking out and a truck comes by, hits you, you die. You can't have the work end with that. Well, the same thing as it relates to disability. I could leave today and have a car accident. I could have I could have a stroke. There's any number of things that there's no guarantee that tomorrow I won't be a person with a disability. That concept, I think, is scary for a lot of people to consider, and yet it's in fact quite true. So when we think of a rationale for this course, the more comfortable you are, the more knowledge you have, hopefully, should anything happen to you or a loved one, you'll be better able to deal with it. Another aspect of disability and why this course exists is not only the discomfort, but it's, shall we say, the uncertainty that people have as far as how do we interact. One of the things I'll come to talk about is that each and every class starts with an etiquette lesson. And for many of you, you'll look at those etiquette lessons and be like, oh, that's so simple. But again, I will tell you, having taught this class to thousands of students, at the end of the semester, they all write a reflection paper. And while it's 300 plus per semester, I read each and every reflection paper. And probably, I'm guessing, in at least 80% of those papers, this thing that they say was truly the most effective and helpful for them was learning disability etiquette, so that when they meet someone with a disability, they know what to say, they know how to act, they're not uncomfortable. And the kinds of things that we'll talk about with disability etiquette are very straightforward. It's just that because we never talk about them, we're not sure if it's okay to, like one of our guest speakers is Sheila Milan, and she uses a wheelchair. If I'm hanging with Sheila and I say, hey, I gotta run, should I feel guilty about that because I said run? On the other hand, from a Sheila standpoint, it's an expression of speech. And yet people get hung up on those things. So we want to really, with this course, decrease people's uncertainty about how to interact and otherwise talk to people who have disabilities. Because I will say, and this is a point we'll make repeatedly throughout the semester, how you think about disability makes a difference. I'll say that one more time. How you think about disability makes a difference. Makes a difference in terms of how you look at yourself, how you interact with the world. We will emphasize 3 models in here, and one is called the moral model, which is kind of the concept, very long history to it, but that disability has a cause, that there's a reason behind it. Another model we'll talk about is the medical model, which is there's something wrong with you, let's fix it. And the third model is what we're referring to as a social model that says, disability is normal, but there's a lot of issues with regard to language and accommodations and access that need to be addressed to allow those individuals to participate fully. That's the emphasis we'll take in this class. But again, I want to, as we think about it, keep in mind there are different perspectives that people take. One of the things I'd also like to mention is the idea of who should take this course, who might get some benefit from this. Because I've designed this class to really be applicable to a very wide range of learners, not only just college students, but individual students in junior high, high school, people in churches, synagogues, other religious institutions, a variety of settings, because I think the topics that we're covering are really significant. And one of the ways that I have a sense of that is that for the face-to-face course that I teach each semester, and as I have done for the last 10 years, I teach it to about 300, 320 students per semester. So I've taught it over the years to several thousand students. And at the end of every semester, the students write a reflection paper about what they learned and what they gained from this. And while certainly I know that sometimes they're shining up to me, I would say that a consistent theme runs through their papers in that many of the topics that we talk about, they hadn't been exposed to, they weren't aware of. That awareness has made a significant difference for them, and that the course has applicability from their standpoint for everyone. I get a consistent note that says, hey, everyone should be required to take this course. So that was really some of the underlying motivation for the development of that, and the thought that we'll try to make the material, the content, the interest level as helpful to as broad an audience as possible. As we think about benefits, the best way in which you'll benefit from this course is to be involved. So watch the lessons, do some of the activities, look at the videos. The more involved you are, certainly I think the more likely you'll get benefit from this. Hopefully by taking this course you'll gain increased comfort. You'll also perhaps have a renewed sense of advocacy. One of the points that I consistently try to make with my students is that things don't change just because they should change. Oftentimes it takes a recognition that things should change and then work to make that happen, because changing status quo or changing the way things just are requires effort, and yet I think from a disability rights standpoint, advocacy is a huge aspect of what we do. Going to also have a personal benefit from thinking about this from a universal design standpoint. I'm going to introduce you to this concept of designing things up front that are as accessible to as many as possible. And then finally, another benefit I think you'll get is just the access to resources. That we cover a lot of different topics. Many of your fellow students are going to, I'm sure, contribute websites and articles and things that we can all make benefit from. I've already got a good collection for you. So having access to those resources will be very helpful. If we think about also this course from a broader societal perspective, my hope is that the information we talk about and that you learn from this, that you share with others, that you talk about to your colleagues, to your family, to your friends. What we're really wanting to do is normalize disability, to say that it is part of everyday experience and is something we should certainly expect. And as part of this approach too, we're talking about the idea that access, and this is one where we get some difficulty, but access is a civil right. We're not just out of the kindness of our hearts bestowing access to those poor disabled people. Please note I'm using quotes there. But access is the same as for any, whether race, gender, sexual orientation. Civil rights are civil rights. And so when we talk about them as related to disability, the major civil right issue has to do with gaining access, whether that's to a building, to technology, to written material. But accessibility is definitely a civil right. Now, having said all of those things, and certainly with the view that hopefully this course promotes positive citizenship, our global citizenship, is a clear recognition, and I will make this comment in future lessons as well. Disability in society is a huge topic. It is far beyond what I can cover even in a 16-week semester meeting twice a week for an hour and a half each time. There I'm still cutting things out. And now we're taking that 16-week semester and bringing it down to 10, what should amount to about 1 hour lesson. So now with that in mind, you can imagine the number of things that we've had to eliminate, that we cover only superficially, and recognize too that while I've brought a lot of students in to the development process of this, that their perspectives and opinions and so forth represent only theirs. And so I open up with this caveat that says we've done the best we can, talked to lots of people, done lots of thinking to try to identify the most important topics and at least some perspectives on each of them. But please also know that I am completely aware that this could be a better and more lengthy kind of a course with additional topics, greater variety of guest speakers and so forth. But certainly as a start, I feel very confident and pleased with what we've done. So now as we move forward, we'll be looking at, in our next segment, some of the values upon which this course is built. But that's it for segment number 2.